As promised, following last week's healthy screen habit, this episode is an encore presentation. Last week, our guest, Heed the Children, gave us the healthy screen habit of unplugging to create kind of a tech Shabbat. And made me think about this previous episode that I recorded all the way back in season 1 of the podcast. Now, this was a different time, and you may enjoy or you may be triggered by the reference to the life that we were all living in 2021. So there are things that are discussed that are not applicable to our lives now, which is wonderful, post lockdown world. But I really hope you'll enjoy the episode and enjoy the amazing work of Tiffany Shlain. Welcome to the Healthy Screen Habits podcast. I'm Hillary Wilkinson. Whether you're starting your parenting journey with a newborn or looking to connect with your teen on technology, let's learn some new healthy screen habits together. My guest today was surrounded by the world of technology before she decided to make a quick and dramatic break in her lifestyle one day a week. As the founder of the Webby Awards, which are kind of like the Academy Awards for the internet, and an Emmy-nominated filmmaker, Tiffany Shlain was living life online to the fullest. Then came a series of events which led to soul searching and a decision she's written a book about. I'm delighted to welcome the author of 24/6, Giving Up Screens One Day a Week. Welcome, Tiffany Shlain.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yay. Okay.
Well, the title of your podcast, I'm like, we were made to speak.
Oh, I agree. I agree. So, Tiffany, now you went from living a very fast-paced online lifestyle until a series of life-changing events occurred. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened?
Yeah, I love technology. I should start with that. And I was always into experimenting with the latest technology first. And my husband is a professor of robotics. Like, we're into it. But we're also interested in the questions around what does it amplify and what does it amputate? When does it make things better and when does it make things worse? And so around over 11 years ago, we both hit this wall that was kind of brought on by very dramatic events where I lost my father to brain cancer, and my husband's and my daughter was born, and this all happened in a series of days. And it really felt like life was grabbing me by the shoulders and saying, what matters? Focus on what matters. And what mattered was that I wasn't looking at screens all the time. And the truth is, I was feeling like I was never present. I was always being pulled from where I was by a notification or a screen. And so we started turning off all screens one day a week from Friday night to Saturday night for what we call our tech Shabbats. And that really comes from the idea of Shabbat. And we're Jewish, but we're cultural Jews, not religious Jews. But the idea of Shabbat is a full day of rest. It's the fourth commandment. And the only people I knew that really did a full day of rest were Orthodox Jews, like very religious Jews, or very religious Christians took a Sabbath, and what I discovered with my husband and family by kind of reclaiming it and rethinking of what does it mean in modern society is for us, it meant no screens. So all the screens went off Friday night, Saturday night. It felt so good. It was unbelievable. And we kept doing it the next week, and the benefits just kept multiplying. And, of course we have kids that they were young. Now we have one going off to college and one almost 12. And we've seen how incredible it's been for them and for us. And so eventually I was like, I have to write a book about this, because here's this free ancient practice that I'm just updating for the modern era that can absolutely make your life better.
I love that. Kind of standing on the shoulders of those who came before us.
Yes. And that's what, that was the most exciting thing, is this is a very old idea. And if you look at, I'm thinking about the title of your podcast, and I think the 10 commandments at their core are how to live a healthy life, how to live a good
balance.
Life. And right, it's like And the fact that taking a full day of rest is so high up on that list, and again, coming from a more intellectual perspective on what the Ten Commandments mean, I'm like, wow, that's very high up on the list. That's above honor thy mother and father. That's above do not commit murder, is take a full day of rest. And so the more that we started doing this practice, I'm like, this is the most brilliant, simple idea. And that's why that's why it's over 3,000 years old.
Right.
There's a reason why this one idea has been maintained in all these different cultures in different ways with slightly different names and different practices, but like to really take a full day of rest. And our society, the goal is like hustle, work, produce 24/7 and achieve and be. And I think that what I've really learned from 11 years of doing this practice is that not only does it reset our screen use for the rest of the week, it kind of resets our sense of self, family. We laugh more, we sleep better. We just, I feel more creative. I feel more productive the other 6 days. Like there's so many benefits, and it all stems from completely disconnecting from the online world and really being present with the world right in front of you.
Well, I think it was in Cal Newport's book, Digital Minimalism, that he found the research done by Kethledge and Irwin that they wrote about that says that we need to preserve space that is free from the input of other people's minds.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Doesn't
Wait,
that
will you send me that
resonate with
quote?
you?
Yes, it's like we have to value thinking on our
Yes.
own. We're not in this hive mind all the time. Like every great wisdom practice talks about listening to what you're thinking. What do you really feel about something? What do you really think? And how can you possibly understand that when you have so much new input and stimulation
all the time,
attacking your brain all the time? Wait, will you send me that quote? I
love for
that
sure.
Quote. I don't have time to write it down.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Yes. So I have to ask, because we're hopefully moving forward through our shutdown pandemic. And I want to know, we have really kind of become very reliant on technology during the pandemic to connect with others. How has this time has it at all affected or changed your family's day of being unplugged? Do you still maintain it?
Oh yeah. It's actually I remember our older daughter in the heat of the first lockdown back last March. I remember my daughter was like, this is the only thing that has been consistent is our tech Shabbats.
Oh.
And they almost became more important because the news was so scary and the election news, and it was so stressful and the doom scrolling, and it was like this one reprieve from all of it. And then my daughter was also applying to college. It was like this super stressful year on a million levels. And so just having this one day where we're like, nothing else matters but what's in this home or out in nature.
And she knew that because you had set that groundwork for over a decade at this point. You guys have had that reset button, so it was a place of comfort.
Thank you. That's a beautiful way. It was comforting. The consistency was comforting. You can't cancel, like so many things were canceled. You can't cancel Shabbat. It happens every week, and we looked forward to it. And, there was maybe a month where we always, the Jewish practice starts with like a meal with family and friends. And even during the pandemic, we've done it outside with a table 6 feet away and a outdoor heater. But we had that very social Friday night.
I have this very beautiful picture of you guys outside. It's very Napa Valley in my brain. So if it's not, don't interrupt my thought process.
Let me interrupt that fantasy, because sometimes it was so cold. And the motto of this year has been that Swedish expression, which is, there's no bad weather, just bad clothing.
Right.
And so we would have all these down parkas and like to throw at our guests when they came. So we didn't want people to be uncomfortable. But I was just saying last week, I'm so sick of freezing needles. Like we just like
I could not relate more. And book clubs outside around a campfire, and you come home smelling like you're camping. And I feel you deeply.
But I think that, Friday is always the social part where not very many people, obviously during the pandemic, it was so much smaller, like a family, whatever. And so Friday night was social, but Saturday was much more hearing your own head and you know, I mean, I really look at Saturday as a day of thinking, perspective. I do a lot of journaling. We usually go out in nature. We all nap, we read. It's a very delicious day in my book, and it allows you to digest everything you've experienced. We're experiencing so much with the internet, which again, I love. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I do newsletters. I love the call and response of the internet, just not all the time.
Right. Well,
and I make a lot of films.
Where you said it's a delicious day to digest. And it's just like you're kind of digesting the rest of the week. I mean, you think about the most delicious meals I have had in my life have been meals that have required a time for digestion afterwards, So that sounds like what this Shabbat almost does. It's a time to process all that good food of the week and get prepped for the next one.
Oh my God, I love that you called that out. Yes, you're right. It's a delicious day to digest.
Well, I kind of like food.
I do too. And right, if you just keep eating and you never give a second, you're not going to enjoy it as much. And so this Friday to Saturday, really helps us enjoy life. I feel like I enjoy my own thoughts more. There's space to think.
Yes.
And there's space to connect with your family or just yourself. And I value it so much. Our older daughter's going off to college and she wants to keep doing this practice. And so
I hope she does. I hope she teaches all of our digital natives out there. I mean, maybe she can start a movement. I would love that.
I had a lot of younger people that have been reading my book lately and reaching out to me. They're in their late teens or early 20s, and they're so burnt out from the pandemic. I mean, the interest in the book, my book 24/6 during the pandemic, it came out the fall before the pandemic, and people were interested in it for a different reason, like the 24/7 life. And then, of course, the pandemic life was screens for everything and whole different level of burnout. And the Zoom burnout, I think, is fascinating because I think a lot about that we can't really make eye contact, and it's this kind of adjacent connecting.
Yes.
And now we're emerging from this pandemic.
I totally want to follow up on that. And when we come back, I'm going to ask Tiffany how the rest of the world responds to her literally being offline one day a week. We love what we do, and we wouldn't be able to do it without the generous donations provided by our listeners and followers. We want to extend special thanks to the Doctors Petty for their unwavering support of the podcast and organization. If you'd like to make a difference and contribute to the education and empowerment of families building their healthiest screen habits, please go to healthyscreenhabits.org, find the Take Action tab, and scroll down and click the donate button. 100% of your donation will be used to spread awareness and bring families the tools they need to develop healthy screen habits. Tiffany Shlain lectures and performs worldwide. She's included on NPR's list of best commencement speeches, and we are talking to her today. Tiffany made a decision to take herself and her family offline one day a week as a day to reset and recharge. So I have to tell you, as wonderful as Tech Shabbat sounds, I admit I was a little skeptical that it would be respected by others until I was getting ready for today's recording. And today is a Tuesday. We're recording on a Tuesday, and I typically reach out to guests 2 days before recording day or so just to touch base and get things organized. And so last Friday, I really should have done that midday. In my fantasy life, I'm all on top of things. But in my real life, it kind of, got in the way as things do, and the day was a busy one. And I realized it was probably 4:30, 5 o'clock, which I realized I'd never sent my email. And I thought, I'll just do it tomorrow. And then I realized I can't email Tiffany Shlain about Tech Shabbat during the weekend. And so I didn't. And the world didn't end. And it was amazing because all weekend, every time I had that little did you get that email out feeling, I was able to think, no, and it doesn't matter because she's not going to read it anyways, you know?
Yeah.
And it just like, it really, you gave me a gift this weekend by practicing your Shabbat.
That's a really good point, because I think so much of this is modeling behavior. I mean, so much of parenting is modeling behavior. Like, if you're on the screens all the time and you're telling your kids get off the screens, it'll mean nothing because they're just watching what you do. And also, as somebody who runs a company, by telling my staff knows I'm not going to email on Friday night to Saturday night. And if I have to email them Sunday, I set it to scheduled to go on Monday morning. And I think email's gotten completely out of control. I know personally my inbox is like, I just think that people need to respect people's time off. And the problem is that people use email and social media and so many things for such a mixture of things that you often, when you're trying to take your time off on the weekend, you're going to get such a mixture of stress and pleasure.
Right. There's a little
creep. Yeah, it's the creep, right? And even on Sunday, like for a while there, I take a full day off on Friday night, Saturday, but Sunday I feel very productive, and I was sending emails. And I'm like, wait, I got to send them press schedule for Monday morning because they might still be having their day off. And so it is about retraining. Like, things got completely out of hand in our society with bosses emailing all over the weekend.
And all times at night.
All times at night. And, you know, to wake up to a stressful email, to go to bed to a stressful email will ruin your sleep, will ruin your morning. And the truth is, you need to spend time. Like, I have my phone out of my bedroom an hour before bed, sometimes 2 hours. And I read and I do my little night rituals. I sleep much better because of it. And in the morning, I don't look at my phone when I wake up. I write and I think for about 20 minutes before I check my phone. And that has also made such a difference. And I think you just have to think that these things are setting the tone for your sleep. They're setting the tone for your day.
Right, for your own health.
And if you're in constant reaction mode, I mean, talk about health, you're just raising your cortisol levels.
Exactly.
You're not setting the tone. And here's the thing. Our minds naturally want to go to the stressful and the negative. So much stuff on the news and the internet is playing to that. So if you take control and say, I'm going to wake up and write what I'm grateful for, what I'm looking forward to today, something positive, I'm going to redirect my mind and I'm going to think, what do I have to do today? Then I'm going to let the world in.
And you know what I love is there's actually science to back that up. With the functional MRIs that we have now, we can actually trace thought patterns and see what areas of the brain light up during those exercises. And for people who tend to be a little more empirically based or not, you know, I mean, there are those people who I consider you a creative, like you're in a creative field, you are generating, and you talk about the comfort you get from journaling and et cetera.
Yeah.
There are other people who might not identify with that. It just doesn't resonate with them. Whether or not I think that's right is another thing. But I think everybody can benefit from gratitude journals, etc. But seeing the brain scans, seeing the actual data of different areas of our brain lighting up and knowing that there are new neural connections being made and fostering growth in that positive framework, I think is so critical.
Yeah, I make a lot of films. That's my normal thing that I do. This was my first book, but a lot of my films show the neuroscience behind things, behind creativity, behind gratitude, behind growth mindset. And I think that the more people see that, science underscores, I think, what we already instinctively know, and it goes in deeper when you see the brain scans. And I think that's exciting because we've never known more about the brain than right now. And I grew up with a father that taught me all about the brain, and my mom's a psychologist. So they've always been teaching me about the brain, but now there's so many scans to back up.
Yes, and it's just validating. It's not so much that it's new data to you, but it's just awfully validating.
It's like, oh, that explains and I think it helps people want to do things more. Like, I remember, I'm always trying to exercise more, and I saw this brain scan of floods your body with new, what it does to your brain and your body when you exercise. is so fantastic. It's going to inspire you to want to do it more. So I think the more we can show people like flooding your body with stress and cortisol and reaction and fight or flight, and okay, that's one way to live. Or if you play into the parasympathetic nervous system more, which is like rest and digest, tend and befriend.
I love it.
All these things about calming you.
Love it.
You have to integrate that into your day.
And
so
teach our kids those techniques. Kids. That's what you were just saying, how what we model, I mean, our actions speak so much louder than our words. And we have observers in our house every day watching us.
They're watching you.
When you don't even know you're being watched. So you have to check yourself before you wreck yourself.
I actually had this interesting moment because we used to have no screens upstairs in our house with 2 levels. Then the pandemic happened and the kids' bedrooms became their school studio, you know?
Right.
And the screens started multiplying like hamsters in our house and where they were. And then I remember there was this point where my husband and I were like, what's going on here? We have to reset.
We are not these people.
we're not this family. And then suddenly we're like, okay, all screens out of the bedroom at 9. And then my younger daughter was like, Mom, but why do you still have your phone in your bedroom? And I thought I was like managing the situation. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. Here's my phone. And I have her take it down at night, which is like, I'm doing that for a reason. I'm like, hey, sweetheart, you want to bring mine down with yours into the charging dock? And I think all of those things are saying, you know, you can say something 3,000 times to your child and it's only what you do that they're going to do.
I agree.
So that's why I think Tech Shabbat, like anyone listening, I would say every week is a new chance to try Tech Shabbat because it happens every week. But I really walk you through in the book, you know, different age kids and different types of kids. It's going to be a different way you should talk to them about this, because really it's not we're going to take your screens away for a day a week, which is like the worst position,
right?
But it's really like, what do you wish we did more of as a family? What do you like to do more of? And like fill the day with joy and remind people. I think people have forgotten how to exist without their phones glued to their hands and screens everywhere, and we actually need to remind ourselves and our kids the incredible balance and joy and healthy kind of physiology and all of these things that you get when you're away from screens for a real day or like really before bedtime.
I love that idea of having it planned and on the calendar, because then you can make the adjustments. Just as a real quick aside, a very real life question. We're both moms. We both have active, very busy children who have their own social schedules. How do you handle weekends? Because like, I'm positive your kids have sports and in regular life. I mean,
we have done, I know it's always like before the pandemic, I mean, we've done it before the pandemic. Well, okay, a couple things is I will say that we will often invite our kids' best friends, families over for Shabbat. And I'll tell you, that has been such a gift because we really get to know the kids they're hanging around with family in a way that's much bigger than a little 10-minute conversation on a soccer field. Like spending a 2.5-hour dinner around a table, and you want to know who your kids' families are. So it's like, if someone's like, oh, I want to hang out with so-and-so, I'm like, let's invite them over for Shabbat. And it's always wonderful. And then you're creating like a wider network of support around your child and your friend's child and all of that stuff. So, but Friday night is always family night. But we will often include their friends in that. Saturday is family day, and we've done it with 2 kids in soccer. And usually I'll have a mom on the team who I will give her my landline, because we have a landline, which I recommend. If a field changes, please call. That happened, it has happened 1 or 2 times. But other than that, I'll just write down which field we're supposed to be at what
just
time,
go back to the old pencil paper. Yeah.
Isn't
it amazing?
I mean, we've forgotten that we used to exist without it. And then on Saturday night, they can be with their friends.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I love that real world look. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask Tiffany, A, the question we all want to know, and B, how to approach technology in a bigger way. Gab Wireless now offers options. Wearable tech like the Gab Watch, devices like Gab phones, and even a kid-safe, non-explicit music library. Built on the most reliable wireless network in the country, Gab is a go-to for first phones and safe tech. Get safety, peace of mind, and an added discount by using the code HSHabits at checkout. We're back. I'm talking with Tiffany Shlain, who's encouraging families to open up to life and find balance with screen time. So, Tiffany, one of the statements in your book reads, there's a lack of balance. The speed at which technology is taking over is so much greater than the speed at which we are able to grasp its impact. And the people in the room making the decisions are rarely connected to the people in homes feeling the effect. I read this and it so resonated with me. I think it perfectly summarizes my greatest frustration with A, the demographics of many of Silicon Valley's most prolific programmers, and B, the reality of trying to intentionally raise thoughtful, empathetic, curious, imaginative children. So, do you have ideas on how we can bridge this gap that's happening?
Yeah, I mean, I look at the couple hearings that have happened even recently with Facebook and Twitter and Google, and so often the government officials don't really understand the mechanics of what they're even trying to regulate. And so having more translators in the room, I'm on a couple boards that work to be that translator. But if you think about like the Television Protection Act, when, advertisements to keep them from kids, and that there have been some updates that Common Sense Media, and then I'm on the board of a new lab that I'm really excited about out of Harvard called the Digital Wellness Lab, and then Children for a Screen-Free Childhood. So there's a lot of great organizations working to fulfill that role. But I think going back, the problem is that a lot of the white men who have created these technologies that don't have kids, who would want to take away eye contact if you were a mom? Like, eye contact is like your single greatest tool as a mom.
Right. You can read a kid across a room with your eyes.
Exactly. And if they're always looking down and glazed and kind of zombie screen, like you're losing your greatest tool. So I'm excited about more women getting into tech, more diversity of people creating it, and basically a demographic that in politics that's going to understand what's actually happening. And the soft skills, I think for so long it was like STEM, but those hard skills, like, I hate the term hard and soft because the soft skills are so valuable. Empathy, being able to read a situation, compassion, and really the mental health issue that's happening right now from a year on screen. It's like the future arrived and it sucked, and it created a lot of mental health issues. And I think, I don't think they're really thinking about that when they're creating these tools. So get more people in there at the creation phase to try to predict and think of the long-term consequences is really important also.
I could not agree with you more. So, Tiffany, on every episode of the Healthy Screen Habits podcast, I ask each guest for a healthy screen habit that our listeners can put into practice in their own home. Do you have one?
Yes, I do. Well, first of all, I really hope you will try doing a tech Shabbat, which my book explains how to do it in 24/6. But the simple thing to just start today is, your bedtime, and back out of that 1 to 2 hours and put your phone outside of your bedroom. Charge it in another room. There's so much research out of sight, out of mind.
At Healthy Screen Habits, we always recommend the master bathroom. That's where we recommend docking stations be put, because we have many, many, many tales of very creative children helping themselves to family charging stations if they're downstairs. But you're right, you don't want it in your bedroom to disrupt your own sleep patterns. But we recommend putting it in the master bathroom.
Wow. But so the second thing I would say, I'm giving you more than one, but when you wake up, even if you use it as your alarm clock, which I have to challenge you to try to not use an alarm clock, because your body really will get up when you know you need to get up. And I've really learned that as I've gotten older. But try to not look at your phone for 20 minutes when you wake up. Like, drink your coffee, write a couple things you're grateful for, things that are going to happen that day. If you like to do yoga, if you like to take a walk, do something besides looking at that phone. I promise you it's a better way to start the day.
I love that. I think it's a better way to start your day, and it's a better way to live your life.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
I love talking to you.
I will link your book, 24/6, Giving Up Screens One Day a Week, in the show notes. But if people want to find out more about you, because like this has really not been enough time with you, and I'm sure people are going to want to know all about you and all of the awesome work that you do, how can they find you online?
I think the best site is TiffanyShlain.com, and my last name doesn't have a C, so it's just SHLAIN.com. And I do a regular newsletter. I'm on all the socials, and all my movies are on there. And I'd love to stay in touch with your listeners.
For more information, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Healthy Screen Habits. Make sure to visit our website, healthyscreenhabits.org, where you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or via RSS, so you'll never miss an episode. It's free, it's fun, and you get a healthy new screen habit each week. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate you giving us a quick rating. It really does help other people find us and spread the word of healthy screen habits. Or if you'd simply like to tell a friend, we'd love that too. I so appreciate you spending your time with me this week, and I look forward to learning more healthy habits together.